Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation on what responsible entities need to know about Oregon DEQ's new third-party verification requirements. My name is Liz Hardy, and I am the Third-Party Verification Program Administrator here at DEQ. The purpose of today's session is to provide an update on Oregon's third-party verification program for participants in both the Clean Fuels Program and Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program. Today's webinar is the first in a two-part series. Part 2, which covers the third-party verification process in detail, will be presented in early 2022. Today, we will cover the basics of third-party verification, otherwise known as 3PV. This includes an overview of what needs to be verified, an explanation of our program implementation process, including how DEQ approves verifiers and verification bodies, and some next steps responsible entities may consider as we approach the first year of verification. Let's begin with an overview of third-party verification and the requirements DEQ will be asking responsible entities to meet. Why does DEQ now require third-party verification? For the state, third-party verification is a way to ensure the reliability of data produced by the Greenhouse Gas Reporting and Clean Fuels programs, which in turn helps DEQ to track the progress our state is making toward its emission reduction targets and to inform the development of future emission reduction policies. For responsible entities, third-party verification can help identify areas of risk and opportunity related to emissions and can also help decrease their liability for incorrectly reported data. Third-party verification ensures a detailed, thorough, and independent review of data so that all stakeholders have an accurate understanding of this data. Third-party verification requirements are contained in Oregon Administrative Rule, Chapter 340, Division 272, which was adopted by DEQ in 2020 to establish third-party verification requirements for data submitted to the Greenhouse Gas Reporting and Clean Fuels programs. This slide explains where to find particular requirements within the rule. A link to the rule itself is provided on DEQ's third-party verification website, which will be shown on the screen near the end of the presentation. Now let's talk about what kinds of reporting need to be verified. We'll start with third-party verification applicability for the Clean Fuels program. The first type of reporting that needs to be verified is quarterly transaction reports. These are verified on an annual basis, though entities may opt to have their transaction reports reviewed by a verification body quarterly if desired. This is sometimes a good way to catch issues and correct them before an annual verification report is due to DEQ. Verification is required for the following transaction types: all liquid fuels, NGV fueling, and propane fueling. Entities that do not generate greater than or equal to 6,000 credits and deficits during the previous calendar year are exempt, regardless of transaction type. Entities may also qualify for exemption if they only report in one or more of the following transaction types: export, gain of inventory, loss of inventory, or not used for transportation, or if they did not report any liquid fuel as production in Oregon or import into Oregon, and they did not report any NGV fuel transactions. The second type of reporting that requires verification is annual fuel pathway carbon intensity reporting. Each annual fuel pathway report submitted must undergo verification unless the holder of the approved fuel pathway does not generate greater than or equal to 6,000 credits and deficits during the previous calendar year for the quantity of fuel produced at a given facility. Oregon also allows the use of fuel pathways approved under California's Low Carbon Fuel Standard program, and holders of these fuel pathways must submit their California verification statements to DEQ. Fuel pathway applications are not required to be verified, but if a responsible entity chooses to have their fuel pathway applications verified, DEQ will prioritize them for approval. Now let's move on to 3PV applicability for the Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program. In general, any facility reporting 25,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent or more will need to have their reporting verified. This threshold includes vented emissions and fugitive emissions, but does not include carbon dioxide emissions from biomass-derived fuels. Any third party who is not the Bonneville Power Administration who submits an emissions data report on behalf of a consumer-owned utility must have data verified for each individual utility that meets the threshold, excluding emissions from power purchased from BPA. Fuel suppliers and in-state fuel producers that are related entities or share common ownership or control must be aggregated when determining whether the exemption applies. Verification must be conducted for total reported emissions, which includes CO2 from biomass-derived fuels. A few exemptions do apply to 3PB applicability for the Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program. First, if the regulated entity reports emissions less than 25,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent, excluding CO2 from biomass-derived fuels, they are exempt from verification. Other exemptions include municipal solid waste landfills. These emissions are covered by a different state regulation, interstate pipelines, and any emissions data report submitted by BPA when it is acting as a third-party reporter on behalf of a consumer-owned utility. The verification rules, OAR Chapter 340, Division 272, and the Greenhouse Gas Reporting Rules, OAR Chapter 340, Division 215, allow for cessation of reporting and verification subject to certain requirements. If the reporting entity drops below the applicability threshold, they must have their emissions data report verified for the first year that this is the case, but may stop having the reports verified thereafter. If their reported emissions rise above the applicability threshold in a subsequent year, the verification requirement would once again apply. Both the Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program and the Clean Fuels Program allow for less intensive verification in certain circumstances. A less intensive verification includes all verification services with the exception of a site visit, and only requires data check and document reviews based on the analysis and risk assessment in the most recent sampling plan, which would have been developed as part of the entity's most recent verification. Less intensive verification can take place for up to 2 years of every 3-year period if there has been no change in the entity's chosen verification body, a positive verification statement was issued in the prior year, and if there has been no change in operational control of the entity in the prior year. The verification body may still choose to perform full verification at its own discretion if there have been significant changes in emission sources or management systems. Now let's move on and cover some basics about how third-party verification works. As verification approaches, DEQ will provide additional training to responsible entities regarding the verification process and what to expect. But here is a brief overview. The process begins when the responsible entity contracts with a DEQ-approved verification body. The verification body manages a team of DEQ-approved verifiers who will conduct the verification after the entity attests to and submits their data to DEQ. They will produce a verification statement, which will be due to DEQ by the verification deadline. More on deadlines later in the presentation. There are 3 possible outcomes for verification statements: positive, qualified positive, and adverse. Before we cover what these mean, it is important to understand the distinction between a nonconformance and a material misstatement. As defined by OAR Chapter 340, Division 272, a nonconformance is any instance where the responsible entity has failed to meet the requirements of the third-party verification rules or the requirements of the program to which they are reporting to calculate or report data or submit a fuel pathway application. A material misstatement is defined as a discrepancy, omission, misreporting, or aggregation of the 3 that leads the team conducting the verification to believe that reported data or a submitted report or pathway application contains 1 or more errors, as described by the third-party verification rules. The unit of measurement varies based on the kind of reporting being verified, but in general, a material misstatement is an over or understatement of 5% or more. Verification bodies prepare verification statements using the standard of reasonable assurance, which means that the verification body has a high degree of confidence in the accuracy and truth of a conclusion. For a positive verification statement, the verification body can say with reasonable assurance that the submitted report or fuel pathway application does not contain material misstatements or nonconformances with the applicable rules. For a qualified positive verification statement, the verification body can say with reasonable assurance that the submitted report or fuel pathway application does not contain material misstatements and that all correctable errors have been addressed. But there may be one or more other nonconformances with the applicable rules which do not result in a material misstatement. For an adverse verification statement, either the verification body cannot say with reasonable assurance that the submitted report or fuel pathway application does not contain material misstatement, or that it contains correctable errors that have not been addressed and are therefore out of conformance with the applicable rules. This slide covers reporting and verification deadlines for the clean fuels and greenhouse gas reporting programs. Though reporting deadlines vary by sector, all verification statements are due August 31st of each year, with one exception. Verification statements for electricity suppliers under the Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program are due September 30th. These deadlines are also published on DEQ's third-party verification website. Verification takes place between the time the responsible entity submits its reporting to DEQ and the verification deadline. Now let's talk about how to find a verification body. Only verification bodies and verifiers who have been approved by DEQ may provide verification services in Oregon. We'll talk about that approval process in detail in a moment, but to find a listing of these organizations and individuals, follow the Information for Responsible Entities link for the appropriate program from DEQ's main third-party verification page. The URL is listed here, and we'll repeat it later in the presentation. Lists of DEQ-approved verification bodies and verifiers will appear under Find a Verifier. Lists for both programs will be published by the end of 2021. While we're on the subject of verifiers and verification bodies, let's talk about DEQ's approval process for those wishing to become qualified to perform verification services in Oregon. The approval process in Oregon begins with accreditation. Both verifiers and verification bodies must be properly accredited to apply to perform verification services in Oregon. For the Clean Fuels program, this means accreditation from the California Air Resources Board Low Carbon Fuel Standard program. For the Greenhouse Gas Reporting program, verifiers and verification bodies can be accredited with the California Air Resources Board Mandatory Reporting Rule program, or the verification body must be accredited by the ANSI National Standards Board's GHG Validation and Verification Bodies Accreditation Program. In addition to accreditation, DEQ requires other information to be submitted and reviewed prior to issuing approvals. For individual verifiers, DEQ collects information about the individual's education and experience related to the sectors they want to perform verifications in. Individual verifiers must also sit for and pass exams that demonstrate their knowledge in each of these sectors. For verification bodies, DEQ collects information related to their staff, including DEQ-approved verification staff, as well as information about the organization's operations and policies. DEQ approval is valid for 3 years from the date of issue, at which point the individual or verification body must reapply to DEQ. To finish the presentation today, let's discuss what to expect as we approach the initial verification year. When final approvals are issued to verification bodies and verifiers, contracting can begin between the approved verification bodies and responsible entities that need verification services. DEQ is not involved in the contracting process, though we may reach out to responsible entities to confirm their chosen verification bodies. There are no DEQ fees associated with verification. Any fees collected by the verification body are set during the contracting process between the parties. Before verification can begin, DEQ needs to confirm that no conflicts of interest exist between the verification body and the responsible entity, or if any conflicts do exist, that the individuals involved have been insulated from the verification process. The responsible entity is responsible for submitting a conflict of interest disclosure form to DEQ. Conflict of interest forms will be available on our website by the end of 2021, and responsible entities may work with their verification bodies on the disclosure. Only after a completed conflict of interest disclosure form has been approved by DEQ will verification activities be allowed to proceed. A conflict of interest is a situation in which, because of financial or other activities or relationships with other persons or organizations, a verification body is unable or potentially unable to provide an impartial verification statement of a potential client's report or fuel pathway application, or the verification body's objectivity in providing services is or might be otherwise compromised. Some situations, like if the same person serves on the board of both the verification body and the responsible entity, are considered high potential conflict of interest. High potential conflicts of interest cannot be mitigated, and the responsible entity will need to contract a different verification body if a high potential conflict of interest is identified. Other situations, like if there are family relationships between the employees or management of the verification body and the responsible entity, are considered medium potential conflicts of interest. In these cases, mitigation is often possible by submitting a plan to DEQ indicating how activities or persons with conflict of interest will be insulated from the verification. In early 2022, DEQ will be providing additional training to responsible entities to provide clarity on verification procedures, including what to expect from the verification process and how transfers of information will take place. In the meantime, if your organization's primary contact for reporting is different from the person who will be your organization's primary contact for third-party verification, please contact us at 3pverify@deq.state.or.us to let us know. If you have any questions related to third-party verification, our website is a great resource. Click on Information for Responsible Entities for the appropriate program to find information on 3PV applicability, important deadlines, frequently asked questions, and other resources. From the main page, you can also click Sign Up for Program Updates to join the 3PV program's GovDelivery listserv. We also encourage you to email 3pverify@deq.state.or.us anytime with questions. Thank you for attending today.